nothing more beautiful than someone who goes out of their way to make life beautiful for others. And today, we have that someone with us, Mekin Maheshwari, founder of Udhyam Learning, which has now served 3 years and helped more than 800 Vyaparis achieve their dreams. With that thought, me and my colleague Pooja welcome you, Makin, and everyone else to Impact Conversations, a chain by Social Story Foundation. With being the founder of Udhyam Learning, Makin is also the co-founder of Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship GAME. He started Udhyam, which works on developing entrepreneurial mindsets among youth from various backgrounds. Mekin was also one of the early employees at Flipkart, where he played different roles. He was head of engineering and finally took on the role of chief people officer. After leaving Flipkart in March 2016, he moved on to follow his true dreams of helping others. So, Mekin, once again, I welcome you to Impact Conversations and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, Megan. And I'm sure that me and others in this session with us today must be wondering that leaving Flipkart and starting your own foundation, Udhyam Learning, was such a huge decision. So we would love to know that what your mindset was like behind thinking of starting with Udhyam.
Okay, so slightly long answer. I think the two decisions there. One is the decision to leave Flipkart, which I did write about, and then the decision to join Udhyam. So I'll answer both of them.
Okay.
So I think the first part, which is the decision to leave Flipkart, came about through a time when we were, actually, let me tell you the longer story. So we were sitting 10 of us sitting in a boardroom at Flipkart and discussing what should Flipkart's strategy be for the next 10 years. And as part of that exercise, the person facilitating the exercise asked all of us to visualize. Ki 10 saal baad, like, what does the world look like? What does Flipkart look like? And what do you look like? And how do you fit in? And in that visualization process, somehow, in this year 2015, I had been at Flipkart for almost 7 years by then. I couldn't see myself at Flipkart, and that was very jarring for me. Like I had joined this company when we were working out of a 2-bedroom house, helped grow this, build this, thought of this as my own baby. And my wife thinks I thought of it as my first baby, even though my daughter is slightly elder than Flipkart. But here was I thinking about that, hey, I don't think I will be here at Flipkart 10 years later. So that's what really prompted introspection. And then I spent a lot of time introspecting that why was it? Like, was it because I enjoyed creating more, that the early stage of a startup is far more exciting than this? I was running HR for 35,000 people at that point of time. So it's like, it might sound like a large job, but it's also a very taxing job, right? It's far more. I think that I have far more fun working with 20 people, and it's like I enjoy that a lot. So that was one part. Then was it the HR role? I was running technology earlier, so did I enjoy technology and product more? I think a lot of this introspection led me to eventually realize that while I had succeeded in life in things I had attempted, at least succeeded socially, I had done things that the that the society thought as important, or the family thought as important. Get good grades, get a good job, earn more money, get promotions, etc. Right? While I had been a little bit unconventional, like joining startups, etc., is thought of as or was thought of as unconventional back in 2006 and 2007. I I really hadn't necessarily thought of what did I care about, and that led me to asking myself even harder questions like, what does Megan really care about? Like, who am I? And while I still don't know the complete answer to that, I think the anchor for me there was like, I care about people, right? Like of the things that I've enjoyed most at Flipkart, I think the part about the team that got built, the early team that got built to set up Flipkart technology, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the culture there, the kind of ownership people had, the way we work together, I think that's what I'm probably most proud of. Even though there are large numbers, there is funding, there is the difference it's made to many, many people's lives. Um, so this realization that people are an anchor for me, helped me think about where I want to go, and that led me to decide that okay, maybe Flipkart's anchor is not people, and it might make sense for me to go pursue that anchor elsewhere. So that
Mm-hmm.
was the decision to leave Flipkart. Um, the decision to start with them was more complex. I think the first part was that this so given people succeeding was a key part of what I wanted to do, like how can I be a part or play a part in more and more people succeeding. And hence I was pulled towards education, because my simple definition of education is helping people succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what education should be. Education should be helping people succeed. um, and in as I started understanding Indian education system, I realized I knew nothing about the Indian education system except for having been a student.
Yeah.
Uh, I read the ASAR report, the Annual Status of Education report, and had you asked me any of those numbers before I read the report, I would have been wrong by more than 50%. So, मतलब कोई हवा नहीं थी, like no clue at all. Uh, and and I think that made me realize that I'm not going to jump in and decide to do something. I'm going to spend time in learning. So I spent a year in meeting a lot of people, in reading a lot of books, in talk in interning at a couple of places to just
Mm-hmm.
go experience where learning might be happening, how learning might be happening, to then firm up my thoughts that hey, what is the need, right? And that led to starting Udhyam. I think the realization. So, quick recap on the realizations I had before I started Udhyam is that our education system missed uh, three things fairly badly. So first was that our education system, and which I thought were important for learning, that one is that our education system gives no choice or no decisions to the student. Um, how much do you want to study? What do you want to study? When do you want to study? Who do you want to study from or learn from? None of those decisions are left to the learner. Arts, commerce, science is probably the only decision
Mm-hmm.
a student makes right after 12th, and nothing else. And then we expect them to get into life and make decisions. And in my opinion, learning is about you make a decision, you face consequences, and that's when you learn.
Yes.
That was the uh, first shift. The second was that our learning was extremely theoretical, and this one has been talked about a lot, that we were only learning theory, but like how do you do stuff? We were not doing enough in our learning years. um, and the third one, which is our learning was abstract. Our learning was in a whole different world, which possibly had no connection with the real world. um,
Mm-hmm.
and like my favorite example which I learned from someone was that we have no shame in introducing Z for zebra to our young kids, knowing fully well that 99% of our kids will never see a zebra in their life, right? And we
Yes.
come up with another word that they will experience on a more daily basis, right? We are happy to throw them into this abstract world ki ha ek जानवर hota hai which has white and black stripes, and you just believe it, right? You have blind faith in it and you believe it, versus telling them something that is connected in the to the real world, that they can question, they can experience in the real world. So those three principles and the jobless situation is what led me to start with them. Let me pause there. I think I can go on, but
It's a very inspiring story, Mekin. I'm sure I can never get enough of it. And it was so nice hearing to you about the zebra annotation because I've never really thought about it in that way. Yeah, we just like tend to hear and accept whatever the education system throws our way.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So that also like hearing your answer, that must have been a big realization sitting in that meeting with 10 other people and realizing that you don't see yourself in Flipkart after 10 years.
Yeah, I could say it then. It was just a shock, and I had to introspect over it for a couple of months together. and then slowly realized that no, I think this is that. I should confess that I think my financial success gave me a lot of freedom. The fact that Flipkart had made me financially independent, that my responsibilities towards my families, towards my parents were done. I didn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to earn to do that. Allowed me to be like a lot more crazier in my introspection. Ki, nahi, let's really figure out what is it that you care about, and because I didn't have to add the constraint of you have to earn money from it.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yes, that is definitely true. So, it's crazy to think about that you joined Flipkart when it was just being run out of two single rooms, and now it's like one of the biggest names in India and in e-commerce. So, I'm sure that you started Udhyam Learning, which is like one of the biggest foundations in India now. But your I would love to know some of your experiences and learning experiments that you did in Flipkart that helped it grow to what it is, and just like you must have juggled with a lot of roles too, with because it was in its early stages. To like, do you care to share some of that?
Sure. I think early stage organizations are a lot of fun, or I find them a lot of fun. They are taxing. There is a lot to be done. Like everything is fresh. There is nothing there, so you have to go around doing everything, and it can be overwhelming, but it's also very exciting. So you realize that. So as a start, for example, I I did not have a proper interview. Right, I had conversations with Sachin and Binny, and then I had conversations with a board member, and then we're like, okay, this is great. Mekin, would you like to join us? And I'm like, okay,
Okay.
this is great, but here on, let's try and hire with a process. Uh,
Yes.
so then I built a basic hiring process of like, here is what we will look for in people and what we care about. So whether it is building hiring processes, figuring out how people got ESOPs, how do we
Mhm.
hire, uh, and then, or it is about like setting up, doing office shift, setting up the local network in the office, uh, figuring out what laptops to buy. So you do everything.
Mhm.
Right? There is no decision, and there is in some sense dignity of labor. Like, hey, whatever needs to be done, you go about doing it. I think to your question of what are some early experiments that helped Flipkart grow, I think my anchor again takes me back first to two things. One, uh, there was this clarity in the early organization, and I would thank Sachin for it. That he said this very explicit clarity that at Flipkart we care about the simple three-pronged rule: service first, selection next, and price after that. I'll explain that a bit. So service is like, how do customers experience us? How can customer experience be like really, really top notch? Do they feel that we are a great service provider? Right? That they are delighted by having chosen us. Selection
Mhm.
is that can they find more and more things, right? And price is, can those things be cheap?
Okay.
But this explicit ordering that, hey, service first, then selection, then price, allowed uh, everybody who came on board. So this was my 5 minute induction into Flipkart. That Megan, ye karna hai humko, right?
Mhm.
And this clarity, along with a lot of customer focus, uh, helped ensure that the way we built the company, the kind of experiences customers had were were really, really fantastic. And there was a lot of word of mouth about
Okay.
how Flipkart grew. Like, so Flipkart grew. Flipkart didn't do any marketing, didn't spend a single penny in the marketing for the first 3.5 years. 2010 is when we first started spending on marketing. Until then, all its growth was organic and word of mouth. People hearing from each other about great service. So
Mhm.
so I think prioritizing service and prioritizing customers in some sense was the first thing that went really well, and that I think most or a lot more companies can learn from. I think the second piece, and similarly from a people point of view, from the kind of team that we were building, to look for people who were high ownership, were independent, uh,
Okay.
and had had cultural values that matched ours,
Mhm.
including willingness to learn, which meant that they weren't arrogant. They were humble people willing to learn, and yet were confident and had high ownership and high skills. I think a lot of those early decisions on how we hired worked out very, very well, because all of these people grew to do amazing things at Flipkart and then outside of Flipkart. So I would think
That's
these two things, right? So on one side, this service and customer obsession, and on the second side, like really holding a bar on who you hire and how you hire and what you value, I felt helped Flipkart grow.
Yes, definitely. And hearing about how Flipkart didn't use any marketing services and it was only word of mouth, it reminded me of another company. It's called Zappos. It was originally about shoes, and that company focused only on customer services, and it was very dedicated to that. And it's also like such a big name. So I have learned so much about Flipkart that I didn't know, and it's so amazing to like know all that. So, you said that hiring all those new people with those skill sets were a big step for Flipkart because they turned out to be great people to be working with. So, being the head of engineering and building out such a great team, which you consider as like one of your biggest achievements. So, what would you like to suggest is needed to build a good cohesive team?
Yeah, I think so. Besides what I've already shared, which is high ownership, high skill people, because you do not have at an early stage company, you often do not have enough time for people to learn.
Okay.
You want people to hit the floor running, and they need to be able to do stuff. Um,
Mhm.
but I think besides this, the one thing that gets the team going, or for this high caliber people to work together, is the ability to put uh, something beyond you ahead of you, right? So people who are self-centered, or people who care a lot about their own personal success, often struggle in an environment which is high intensity, which has all of this going on, compared to people who are able to put a mission that, oh, this is our goal, this is our uber mission, and we are all working towards that. And I think
Mhm.
as long as people are able to do that, then like collaboration, communication, setting egos aside becomes much easier. But if and it's not something that everyone can do, uh, but especially in a high speed young organization, it's important to get people who can put the mission ahead of themselves, because else you would have people who are detracting from the mission or focusing on what is right for them, and that may or may not be right for the mission, versus
Mhm.
everybody is pushing towards the mission, in which case things start happening. Because like startups are very hard. I don't want
Yes.
to make anyone believe that, oh, creating Flipkart is easy, or creating a successful startup is easy. It requires a lot of effort, and it requires all of these people, all of these high caliber people on one end, to still work together and make things happen together.
Yeah, definitely. That is very true. And it was a great point that you made that we need people who are not looking so much forward to just learning, but can have the sense of ownership. And I think it's really important in a startup to have people like that. So thank you so much, Mekin, for sharing that. And I was wondering that when you were first working at Flipkart, and after some of the startups that you tried, like a payment space option, which like could not go as planned. And so, what are the changes or like the challenges that you faced and things that you did differently in like building Udhyam to what it is today?
I think, yeah, I would, as a minor correction there, that I've yes, while PayZippy and the digital product mini startup I was
Mhm.
running at Flipkart, they didn't necessarily go well, or they didn't necessarily become large successes. I still feel like what we did there was amazing, and in terms of their potential, that the potential was a lot higher. Uh,
Okay.
we as a leadership team did not have the bandwidth to pursue them. So
Oh,
one of the things that I learned at Udhyam, and that we had been practicing at Flipkart, was focus.
okay.
That you, it's better to be solving one problem really, really well than to try and solve five different problems.
Hmm.
Um, I think, so that bit, that's one large learning that Udhyam has lived through and followed. That we and And I don't think Udhyam is a very large foundation yet. I think of us as in the early stages. Yes, we have been able to create some impact working with 5 or 6 state governments, etc. But I think our ambitions are much higher. We have a long, long way to go. And in there, focusing on one problem, which is to like, build entrepreneurial mindsets amongst young people,
Mm-hmm.
has helped a lot. And then, and only after some time did we add the second problem of how do you enable small business entrepreneurs to grow. Uh, and even though the space can be much broader, I think choosing to stay focused on these two problems, and maybe if I can be harsh on myself, I should still have focus only on one instead of two problems. But this choice or focus, I feel, is an important part of uh, what what has led Udhyam to be what it is.
Okay. Yes, I am sure that Udhyam will grow into whatever heights you want it to be, and I wish you all the best for that.
Thank you.
And I was wondering that you mentioned that you managed a team of 30,000 people as a human resource manager. But I also know that you were like the technology head and the engineering person at Flipkart. So these two roles are like completely different. So how did you like manage to like live up to both of them?
Yeah, so yeah, maybe before I answer that question, I'll take you to my childhood. When I was growing up, I would move every about 2 to 3 years. Right, my father had
Oh,
a
wow.
transferable job, so as a
Okay.
result, I went to 7 schools to finish my schooling. Right, I would move into a place, into a new place, new teachers, new friends, new syllabus,
Mhm.
new kind of school. Slowly adapt to it. In about a year and a half, my marks would start getting better, and then again I would move. Right, so my career graph or my marks graph looks like a sawtooth, like slowly
Oh my
rise
God.
and then fall, and then slowly rise and then fall again. Um, and I think what that has done is it's taken away the fear of learning from me. Right, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
not afraid of getting into new spaces. Um, I I might sound arrogant, but I feel like I can learn most things. Right? That it's
That's the
that,
spirit. Yeah.
that nothing like, hey, if I work hard enough, I can learn something.
Mhm.
So that belief is there,
Okay.
and hence whether it is technology, I have not thought of myself as a specialist that, oh, I am only a technical person and hence I cannot do this. Right,
Mm-hmm.
try karte hain. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't, but I am willing to try, I'm willing to learn. um, and people in some sense was an area that I was anyways passionate about, which I discovered much later in life thanks to Flipkart. But like I said, that even when I joined and I was running technology, I was focusing a lot on the culture in the technology team, in hiring processes, in compensation and ESOP processes within the technology team, and a lot of effort in actually hiring and performance management, besides the technology building. So yeah, I feel every manager, every leader has to do HR. Right? It's not that. Uh, it, so, and as a manager and a leader, you can bring a very fresh perspective to HR. Um,
Mm-hmm.
HR otherwise is seen as this external entity, which is not necessarily core of the business. But
Yeah.
you can, if you can think of HR as something that's deeply embedded in business, and because I had worked in the core and then moved into HR, it allowed me that luxury. So, and then if I were to stretch that analogy further, similarly also getting into education. So like,
Mhm.
I think of like, okay, I've done technology, I've done HR, doing education or finance. I think of myself as a learner, right, and a problem solver. I don't have to be boxed, and I don't want to end my life as, oh, I was an expert at X. um, I think of myself as a problem solver, and like I'm happy to go in and solve problems. And
Mhm.
for that, whatever it takes, whatever I have to learn, I'll go learn.
That's amazing. It's like so impressive how you can juggle with so many different roles and be good at it. And it's it's so interesting to see that you have changed 7 schools. And even if my family wanted me, I wouldn't even change once. Like I have been in the same school since kindergarten till high school. So I cannot relate to what you must have experienced or things like that. So Like leaving Flipkart and joining, starting your own foundation, Udhyam, was a big decision, Mekin. So, what were you? Where was your support coming from? Like, how were you able to deal with like it emotionally, or just like what would you draw your support from to like make that big transition in life?
Yeah, I think so. So family was one big support. Like my wife has been a very staunch supporter, silent supporter, like with
Mm-hmm.
complete belief in me. In like, hey, it's like helping me think through and process and figure out what is right for me. What do I believe in, right? And not been doubting or questioning. So I think that's been helpful. I think another large piece was my, as in my parents, both my mom and dad. My dad, so this is an early story. When he was making his career transitions, he
Okay.
would involve me, even though I was like a 14-year-old boy, and he would seek
Mm-hmm.
my opinion on, hey, what should I do? Right. So I think I learned very early in life about valuing perspectives, and so like it was very important when I was making career decisions, for me to hear his side and understand him and onboard him to my decisions. And he's been super supportive. Like he didn't understand my decisions to join startups or to leave, because these are, but at the same time, like emotionally, he's been very, very supportive. So I think family has probably been the stronghold, and that's
Mm-hmm.
worked. I consider myself privileged and lucky that that worked very well for me. Um, it's it was a tough journey. Right? Yeah, I don't think it's easy to, like, there are places, there are points of self doubt. There is a lot of questioning, and uh, are you doing the right thing is a question that every entrepreneur asks themselves almost every time. But I think of that as a positive. I think it's useful for an entrepreneur to doubt, and to understand their own decisions much better. Right. So it's important to doubt and improve your actions. But yes, at some strong base, you need to believe in yourself.
Yes. I am so glad to hear that you had your family as your backup, and your wife sounds like an amazing person. And it definitely is a very difficult decision to move to like being an entrepreneur, especially like all those years ago from now when it was like considered to be a very tricky job to do. And speaking of difficulties, like COVID-19 has impacted all the businesses so much. And with your business being one of the part of that being supporting small businessmen, which COVID has hit so badly. So, like, how do you think that COVID-19 has affected your business, and like, how do you like plan to recover from it?
Yeah, I think so. Udhyam has two large parts: Udhyam Shiksha and Udhyam Vyapar. With Udhyam
Mhm.
Shiksha, we work with young people, and now primarily through state governments. That's towards building the entrepreneurial mindsets for them. And with Udhyam Vyapar, we work with small business entrepreneurs, enabling their growth. Um, and I think both of these segments got impacted very badly. Education, in some sense, and schools at least, have
Yeah.
taken a complete pause. There's been no
Mhm.
schooling at all, right? There's been learning
Yeah.
that possibly happened at home or online or experientially, but schools got shut down. So that was a large hit, and small business entrepreneurs were amongst the most impacted, both from a business standpoint and in terms of their survival and families. And so for the first few months, we were mostly focusing on relief, on figuring out and ways in which. So the team was figuring out how could we enable
Mhm.
food deliveries for small business entrepreneurs, and figure out how might we help them, raising money from them for them, crowdfunding campaigns, etc. So I think that's the part, that early part of the pandemic, we were doing. I think it also helped us introspect as an organization and
Mhm.
figure, like, what should we be doing, what could we be doing, how can we be entrepreneurial at this stage. And we started focusing a lot on other means of reaching out to our our customers, both entrepreneurs as well as students. And we've been able to work on digital products. So we were able to figure ways in which small business entrepreneurs could learn on Zoom, or could learn about using digital products like, say, an India Mart or a Khata book to manage their business better and to run their businesses better, or use WhatsApp to attract more customers. So helping entrepreneurs do that has been something that we've been able to do. And with young learners, given schools have been shut, we've been able to build uh, digital tools. So there's, for example, we've built a chatbot on using WhatsApp on the WhatsApp platform, which is task oriented. That it's a gamified chatbot that allows young people to do simple tasks. And as they do simple tasks, they move up levels, etc. So it's a game on WhatsApp that
Yeah,
now over 10,000 students have played and loved playing. So
that's amazing.
so we shifted from being in or enabling teachers in classrooms to using technology.
Okay.
I think it's in that sense, COVID has accelerated the digital or the technology shift. And given
Mhm.
my background, uh, I, I always wanted to use technology to scale, but COVID has just accelerated that a lot for us.
Yes, I am so glad to hear that even after COVID hit, you guys came stronger than ever and that you had that introspecting time. And now you're also in the digital space that we probably is the future in. So, Mekin, would you like to share some of the things that you considered helped Udhyam grow to what it is from a startup? And like now that you're a successful business owner and with what just started as like an idea and inclination to help people and do something in education, is there any advice or maybe like warnings or that you want to give to all the startup owners out there?
Sure. I think complex questions. I'll try and take a shot. Like I said, I feel Udhyam is still very small. We have a long way to go, and and these advices are coming just from my experiences. So please treat them with caution. Figure out if they're relevant in your life and your business before you apply
Yeah.
them. But that said, here are things that have worked for Udhyam. I feel. Uh, I feel what's really worked for Udhyam uh, is being on ground and understanding our customers deeply, working closely with our customers. Um, so very often, uh, organizations, especially organizations that want to scale, tend to operate in like an ivory tower and not work closely with on ground with your core customers. And I think that is a bit that both Udhyam Shiksha and Udhyam Vyapar have done now for quite some time. Um,
Okay.
I think the second piece that we've done is that we've looked for impact in terms of actual actions. So not just the effort that we do, that oh, we provide X training, or we've created this tool, or we've conducted this program. That's the input. But
Mhm.
from an output point of view, uh, has have student actions changed? Are there student actions that weren't happening earlier and are now happening? Are students doing things that surprise them, surprise their parents? And even though it's very hard to quantitatively measure things like self belief or grit, um, are you seeing that? Right? Are you seeing that in young people? So I think holding ourselves accountable to actions and results rather than just inputs. I think that's the other piece that's helped Udhyam. I think the third piece is just believing in the problems that we are solving, that these are important problems, and then experimenting a lot. So a culture of experimentation that we've tried, uh, that's allowed us to try many different things and learn. Um, and then being able to, I would say we did get lucky with like with Delhi government project with other state governments, and to find partners who are like-minded. I think that I consider ourselves fortunate that we've probably scaled uh, a lot for a 3.5-year-old organization, and that's thanks to great partners in SCRT in Delhi, in Mr.
Mhm.
Manish Sisodia, who's the education minister there, in Haryana, in Assam, and other states. So finding such partners, and it's not like it didn't take effort. Of course, we did our bit. We put in effort, but I don't think we would have gotten this far without the partners. So I think the mix of these together is what's led to them being what it is. To your second part of your question, which is advice to entrepreneurs, and maybe I'll do two bits or nuance it a lot more to social entrepreneurs, people who are
Okay.
trying to solve impact and social challenges,
Mhm.
because that in some senses is often harder, because one is that measurability is low, and given measurability is low, my advice to social entrepreneurs is to have a high bar for, are you really seeing impact? Like, do you believe and can you see the impact, at least anecdotally, right? While data
Mhm.
might be hard, but if possible, then try and get data. So that's one piece of input. Two is figure out what are the core principles and what are you strong at, what are you adding to the world, and focus on those versus trying to be everything. um, I feel like focus can be like, there are many challenges in the world, and with any group that you might work, you might be tempted to solve 100 problems. Pick one or
Mhm.
two and try and make a difference in those. I think that would be my second piece of advice.
Thank you so much, Mekin. Those were some great insights, and I am sure that all the people we have with us today and our audiences really loved you having here. And I really wish all the best to Udhyam Learning. And thank you so much for a great session. And I definitely have learned so much about Udhyam, about Flipkart, and about your world in social entrepreneurship. Now, I would like to give it over to Manvi to say the last few words.
I think this amazing conversation can go on for whole day, but there's no way of time. So thank you so much, Mekin, for joining us for this session and sharing your thoughts. We are extremely delighted to have you and look forward to stay connected with you. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Manvi.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you, Pooja.
Mekin.
Thanks. Bye.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.